Yo, this is the first ever graphic novel to win a Pulitzer Prize. But I'm telling you, it's so depressing, distressing, and disorienting. You gotta be at least 18 plus years of age to even read this book. And I'm warning you straight away. All right, so we are in episode number 3 of Golden Graphics, but this particular novel, The Moss, is not golden because it's black and white graphic novel. And one interesting fact is, the comics, especially superhero comics, got famous during the 1930s and 40s. That was the golden age. But after that, started declining. It became so cheap and a lot of exaggerated caricatures. So the comics kind of lost its mojo during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So towards the end of 70s, it was almost, considered as something low grade. But there were a lot of graphic novels and comics that played critical role in reviving the comics genre during the 80s. So that one was The Watchmen, which I talked about in the last episode, and this is especially very important. The complete moss or the moss generally. So he kind of published it in two parts. So the complete moss, nothing but both the part one and part two. So it kind of gave way our term to coin the term graphic novel. So before 1980s, it was just comics, okay? So there was nothing called graphic novel. But once we started getting like famous and path-breaking genres like Watchmen and Moss, so it became it became a separate genre called graphic novel. So basically, it's a novel being portrayed in graphics. So that's why the term graphic novel. So this played the Moss played a critical role in coming up with the term graphic novel. So yeah, the Moss is a graphic novel, black and white graphic novel, unlike Watchmen, which is like color. So it was published in two parts by Art Spiegelman. So the name is original name is Art Spiegelman. So his name itself has art in it. So you can see the sketchings here. It's pretty bleak, I would say. I mean, black and white, right? So and also it kind of resonates the story. So I kind of said that it's kind of depressing and disorienting as it does. For me to read 10 pages, it felt like I read 100 pages just reading 10 pages because there's so much, as you all know. You have this particular frame, and then you have the characters, and then they're talking to each other, and then this bubbles, dialogue bubbles. So you have to read the dialogues from the bubbles and then look at the frames and like what's happening. So sometimes it's symmetrical. This is symmetrical frames, like where you have equidistance and kind of symmetrical frames, stories told through symmetrical frames. Sometimes it kind of is not symmetrical. So there is more than what do you say, less than 9 frames. So there is a like standard, right? So it kind of mixes up. So Moss is one story told in graphics, which is what do you say? Cannot express Moss in words, but I'll try to do that. So the story. Let's go to the story. So what is the story? So it's the genre is it's multiple genre like history, fiction, non-fiction told in fiction. So he has fictionalized the true incident or the true life of his father and himself, like the author's father and himself. So it's a lot of genre, psychological, drama, and then emotional. So it explores various genre. It at certain points towards the second part, it kind of breaks the fourth wall also. So there's so much going on in the story, but the central element is it's a family. It's about a father and son who's living in New York currently in the 1970s. But the father is a person or is someone who has survived the Holocaust, German Holocaust. So he's a Polish Jew, the father, and he has survived that. So here, the father and the mother has come to New York after the war, and the second son is Art Spiegelman. So he kind of grows up in New York. He doesn't have any idea. Growing up, his mom tried to tell him like what happened back in Europe, but he's been given like bits and pieces, but when he grows up, he kind of knows that what has happened to his parents, and he grows a like what do you say uh, kind of distant relationship with his father. Is He knows that his father has gone through a lot of hardships, and his character is so and so because of the hardships. So especially people who are soldiers, right, in war, they come back with PTSD. So all those stuff is there. But imagine a person who has gone through Holocaust, what kind of sufferings and mental disorders he would go through, and character breaks he would go through after surviving it. So he kind of understands. So in one side, he kind of is empathetic, but then the other side, he's like frustrated with his dad. But then he has this urge to tell the story, like what his father and mother went through, going through the war, Hitler's regime, like surviving the Holocaust. What is it like to be a Jew during those times, 1930 to 1945, during this 15 years? So that's the premise of the whole story, told in two parts. For part one is My Father Bleeds history. So you get a lot of historical narratives, like he's trying to interview his father. Like his father's health condition is also kind of worsening, so he kind of interviews him in a periodical gap. So it's switching between the past and the present. So whenever his father starts to narrate something, so we go to the past, like back in 1930 and 40, what happened and how they like survived, what are the stories, like what were the hardships and what kind of sufferings they faced. So all those things. But when it comes to this present, it's 1970s, and is the son is interviewing the father, and he's kind of okay, pretty frustrated with his father's demeanor, and as well as kind of mannerisms. So he kind of doesn't like certain things, like he's very miser. He basically doesn't want to spend money, and any small repairs at home, he kind of wants to do it himself. And even small meals or like cigarettes or groceries, he's trying to bargain or like try to get it for free. So it's that kind of nature. It's almost like he kind of gets pissed off. We have so much money, like why don't we get a new nurse, or get some new groceries, go to the shop and shop some groceries. So is he has not gone through anything, and he has grown up what do you say, without the hardships of surviving Holocaust. But in turn, his father has survived the Holocaust, and they have come to New York, and they have settled down there. So it's like two contrasting lives, the father and son, how they try to interact, and how this narrative comes into the books. So that's the entire story. It's like story within story. And unfortunately, his mother didn't what do you say, like mother committed suicide after coming to New York, and that left a very bad mark in his life. So he is deprived of mother's kindness and love growing up. So he kind of tells that in his own way. Like he's artistic, right? So Art Spiegelman, like even in the novel, he is very he's like a comic artist. So basically, the traumatic experience that he went through after his mother had killed herself, and how he felt, he told it through a comic story, and we kind of get to the read that comics inside this graphic novel. So it was like mind blown. You are reading a comics inside a graphic novel. So I'll show you that, all that. But this is the kind of storytelling and story that you get in the MAUS. It's very depressing, and it's so hard to read. I was time boxing it, like basically 10 pages per day. So I couldn't read more than 10 pages because it was so mentally what do you say, demanding. And it the story hits you so hard. You're feeling for both the father and the son. So the son is guilty, but then he's the human, like he's grown up with the pleasures of life, the freedom, and never going through the hardships of being a Jew in the Hitler regime. So he doesn't know any he doesn't have any clue or idea what's the meaning of independence or freedom that he has. And he kind of gets to know the story from third person perspective. So he's basically interviewing his dad, and his dad is telling his own experience, like how I survived, like how I saved food, and like we traveled across countries, and your mother and I were separated, we were put up in different groups, we were moved to Auschwitz. So at the end, they are moved to the Auschwitz camp. Auschwitz is the notorious, infamous camp where they killed, gassed Jews and killed, like mass murder happened in Auschwitz camp. So there were a lot of camp, but Auschwitz is most famous one. So we already have another novel called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, Bruno. So that's told from a kid perspective, completely different vocabulary is there, but here it's for adults, so it hits you really hard, like what happened there. And you have sketches. So you have sketches, illustrations of how it could have been. So the sketches doesn't even come 1% or 10% to the reality, I guess. It's even difficult to imagine what kind of hardship and suffering they would have gone through during that time, like those 15 years when Hitler was rising to prominence in the 1930s, and when he became the emperor, and then towards 1945, when they knew that they were losing the war, they were trying to kill almost everyone, like all the prisoners, Jew prisoners they were trying to kill every one of them. So how they survived this, all these things told from the story or narrative of father and being interviewed by the son. So that's the entire story. And this is mostly the part one, where my father bleeds history tells mostly about the past and then what's happening in the present. So in the trouble, and the second part is and my trouble began, like that's titled as and my troubles began. So that's more towards the son, like son is going through his own miseries and he's seeing a therapy. And the first part has been published, so this is something I'm talking about inside the book. So in the second part we get to know that he has already published the first part, and then it is getting like a lot of controversies as well as critical work. So both good and positive and negative reviews. And he's being asked like, how would you represent oh yeah, I'll save that question. So yeah, the second part is mostly about the son, like how he's trying to take care of his dad and still like finish up the interview, till the end of war, and how they came to America, how his mother and father reunited. So this is the mostly the second part. So this is the entire story of 296 pages of both parts. And as usual, as I have told before, the characters are just two main characters, Vladek, which is the father, and then Art Spiegelman, which is the who's the son. And then we have Anja, who's the mother and wife of mother of Art Spiegelman, wife of Vladek. So the mother kind of committed suicide. She was in mental hospital, and then she came back, and she couldn't handle it, so she kind of killed herself, and that impacted the son. So, and actually, Art Spiegelman is the second son. So they had a son called named Richiu, but he was killed basically. And that's a very sad story that I leave you to go and read it in the book. And these are the main characters. So basically, you see the main lead characters are Vladek, the father, and Art, Vladek Spiegelman and Art Spiegelman, father and son. And surrounding them, there's going to be plenty of characters. So there is past as well as present here. So in the past, we see more about Vladek. So Vladek, who is old man in the present, is the protagonist in his narrative, like in the past. So during that timeline between 1913 45, he's the protagonist. He's very young, and we kind of see how he rose to prominence. And then because of this invasion, Germany invaded Poland, and then started like capturing the Jews and trying to kill them, and ghettos, trying to put them in concentration camps. So all these things started after the invasion. So how he went through that phase, and from a rich man, how he became like a prisoner, and how he was treated in prison, how he had to go through stuff, save stuff, like trying to not have food for 2 3 days so that he can save food and give it to his wife, and what all miseries they face. So this basically is kind of very very disturbing when you start reading it. So these are the main characters and the surrounding characters. So obviously there's a lot of characters in the past segment during the Hitler era where this narrative is happening. But in the present, we just surrounds between the father and then son. And there is the second wife, Mala, who is taking care, basically like a nurse, who's taking care of Vladek, the father. But he's not happy with the wife, and Mala, the wife, is not happy with the father. So basically, he's like a miser now, doesn't give any money to spend. So it's kind of very sad to perceive everybody's understanding or perspective. So these are the main characters and the supporting characters. And yeah, coming to the what do you say, aesthetic elements. So as you can see, there is a cat and a rat. So it's pretty much symbolism. So this entire book or novel or story is all about symbolism. And the Germans are represented as cats, Polish are represented as pigs, and obviously the Jews are represented as rats. So if you dig, Wikipedia and stuff, you know like why they were represented as the respective animals. It's very interesting because there was a propaganda film during the Nazi regime, and basically they promoted like Jews are vermin, like rats. And so they even told like Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse was famous, like it's a famous cartoon, everybody loved Mickey Mouse. But then Germany, like they were propagating like Mickey Mouse, I like it's completely can't comprehend how Mickey Mouse is a character. Like it's the most what do you say, ugliest creature, as well as carries bacteria. So they were symbolizing Jews as rats, and basically they wanted to eradicate the rats. So the genocide kind of, it's genocide propaganda film. So that I'm talking about. It's in Wikipedia. I can go read. So that's how the idea came, I guess, and the author has derived this concept of Jews being, portrayed as rats. And then, so in the second part, so I was saving one question, right? So in the second part, it starts that the son is having some, after releasing the first part, he's having some issues. Like he's meeting a therapist, and he's having a press meet where they're talking about like his first book success. Like it's very controversial. Like he has represented Jews as rats and Germans as cats and Polish as pigs. So one reporter is asking him like, how would you represent I think Australian Jews, I don't know the country, I forgot. And he kind of replies that, if I were to represent, I would represent them as porcupines. Right? So it's the symbolism here I'm talking about. And apart from this is evident symbolism, but the book itself is like a critic of its own. As I said, you are reading in the first part, the highlighting element is you are reading a comic inside a graphic story. So the son is going through traumatic experience. His mother killed herself, so he has been deprived of motherhood, and what do you say, the mother's love and kindness, and that he kind of takes it out on comics. So he creates a comic story about his mom's death, and that's the highlight of the first part. And the second part is this psych evaluation and interview where he's meeting the therapist, and then the reporters are asking questions about the first part of the book. So it's like you're kind of something like the world within world, right? It's first part, you're getting to realize that he's actually published the first part. So there is a time where you feel our reality and the book's reality is kind of colliding, and it's difficult to differentiate which is which. So kind of the symbolism that it portrays, and then the wall it breaks, it kind of messes up your head. So I was like mind blown. So completely removing the politics and looking at the aesthetic, the techniques, or the writing aspect, or obviously it's the illustration, right? But then there's writing, there's a story that's being portrayed through dialogues and sketches. So the story writing and the symbolism and the techniques that are used, so it's completely mind blowing. I think it's one of those books that is a case study and a quintessential example for how to write a graphical. So I think this book is the pinnacle of how to write a graphic novel. So in Watchmen, it was all about superheroes, but there was not any popular superhero. It was humans, normal humans, trying to train themselves and trying to be superheroes. And there was one superhero in it, actual superhero with scientific powers. But here it's realism, and there is a lot of things he has omitted because reality is too harsh to represent in graphic novel, right? So that's why I love this. So let's take a deep dive. As I say, I would like to show you guys yes, if you see, it's like 296 pages. It's a very heavy read. I completed it, I guess, 1.5 months, probably 1.5 months. I continued to read daily, 10 pages. Yeah. So this is the book that I read. I think this is the first graphic novel that I ever read. I forgot to tell you. I want to tell that in the first opening. Yeah, so it's basically, you see, the first starting segment, I loved it. So yeah, it starts with the present where Art Spiegelman is a kid and he's like playing with his friends, and he kind of trips down. They are actually skateboarding, and whoever comes first is going to be declared as winner. So his friends kind of desert him and go because he falls and trips, and then he comes crying to his dad, like, my friends left me, like, and then his father asks a question like, friends, if you put everyone inside a room and deprive food and basic necessities, then you'll know who are your true friends. So that's like a foreshadowing there, because that's the entire story. What happened to him, like the father. So this is the father and this is the son. So this is where the actually story starts, but we kind of quickly jump. This is part one, where we see that my father bleeds history and here my troubles began, right? So yeah, as you can see, it's black and white sketches. So it starts off directly in his son trying to interview. So this son is, we kind of know that his health is deteriorating, and then he has to do this pedaling to keep his pulses steady, as well as blood pressure, everything. And he starts to interview. He gets this idea like, I want to know more about what happened in Europe, like during that time, what kind of hardship you faced, what did mother have anything, like did I never talked about it to her. So it's like he's trying to ask first, but then he gets the idea of interview, and then he slowly starts interviewing, and he kind of notes it down, like taking rough notes, and it begins. So this history begins, like how he was dating many girls, and then he was not serious about them, but then for marriage he was like pretty like impressed with Anja. So Anja is the mother of Art Spiegelman. So how their story started. So it's pretty interesting, and if you see, it's so hard. Like when you look at this, you'd feel like you don't want to read. So the honest opinion uh anybody would feel is like, it's so hard to comprehend. Like the sketches are black and white, so there is nothing attractive in it. Like comics at least are color, right? But this is a black and white graphic novel, so it's kind of just black and white. And the sketches you have to see like what's in there. Thankfully, it's not that kind of story where you have to decode stuff, like there is something in this frame that will be used later. So it's not that kind of storytelling. So it's a fiction based on non-fiction, like what happened in real life. He's tried to fictionalize it to a certain, like, very small degree, and then he's told, like, it's almost like a non-fiction. You're reading non-fiction, what actually happened to Jews. So it's like a documentary, right? So you kind of gauge what exactly happened to the life of one person. It's like a lens. You're viewing one person's life, and that denotes the entire community of like what kind of hardship the Jews went through during Hitler's regime. So it's pretty bleak and gloomy, I would say. Not very attractive. You see, and certain frames are very heartbreaking. So it's like seeing a photograph, protesting, like a lot of protests are going on right now across the world, and then like when people are beat or like and tortured, and luckily some photographers try to capture a frame, right? So all the frames in this book is like powerful. So every frame tells you a story, and especially when it comes to, see, it starts here, like how they started invading, and it became very regimented, and how they controlled, captured the Jews, how their wealth being taken away. So the first part mostly concentrates on how the father and the mother, like Vladek and Mala, meets, and how they got married. And the first son, Richiyu, he like Anja gets pregnant with the first son, Richiyu, and how quickly
the things turned, war started. So even the Vladek also served as a soldier. So all the stories, so basically kind of starts. It's very hard, like, you know, you see, this is Polish citizens. So they are being represented pigs, and Nazis are represented as cats. So some people wear pig mask. They are like not, what do you say, native, or trying to get away being a Polish. So that's something uh, which happens in later in the story also. Vladek and Anja, they are trying to get away, and they kind of wear the pig mask, trying to get away as Polish citizens. But for Anja, it's too much. Like, her outward appearance is too much Jewish, so she can't be wearing a mask and walking out. See, this is how they actually hang people. So in graphical form, this is very decent, but this pretty much happened actually, like in reality. So people were hung and they were left to witness, like, witnessed by the public for a couple of days or more than a couple of days, so that the fear is instilled, and says that, it's been invaded and we are having new rulers. So all this story, like, yeah, this is the comic that I was talking about. So this is what I was telling. So Art Spiegelman, uh, as a character in this novel, he has lost his mother, and his mother has killed herself, committed suicide, and that has left left him traumatized, right? So he kind of writes a comics on it. So this is called Prisoner on the Hell Planet, as you can see. So somehow Mala, the second wife, kind of happens to show it to the father. The father doesn't have any idea that Art Spiegelman, son, wants to become a comic artist. So he's having his own expectations that the son is not able to fulfill. That way he kind of moves away and lives separately and is having a distant relationship with his father. So when he discovers that he's a comic artist and he has written a comics based on his mother's death, I mean the suicide, it's too much for him to take. But this is the comic that we read inside the graphic novel. So this is basically, it's like you see here, this is the mother, actual mother, and the son, Art Spiegelman. I think is actual photo. It's not like fiction here, it's actual photo. So it's like pretty disturbing here by the time you come to this, and it's like that very traumatizing art. Like, basically it's 4 pages, but you kind of get the idea that what kind of artist he is, and how he has been traumatized upon his mom's death. So it goes on, and we kind of see, basically the first part is nothing when you compare to the second part, what the Jews went through, especially, like, they have to survive. There's no friends basically in the camp. Anybody can turn against you, and you have to make friends. So there was corruption even in Hitler's regime, so you can get away certain things, like if you give money, bribe the guards, you can get certain things. So you have to make good connections. So all those things were there, and it was simply very difficult to read. So this is Art Spiegelman's wife, and is trying to figure out how to represent her, like basically a frog, a moose, or a bunny, because she's converting. I think she's from France, and getting converted to Judaism. So he's like very doubtful, or in not having a clear perspective on how to represent her, like if he were to, like, but actually in the story she is also being represented as a rat, right? Mouse. And yeah, it becomes from here, the second part becomes like, how are you going to take care of your dad is not in a good state, is not having good health, and is not a person to be sticking around. Also, he's very he's like always talking, and then complaining about one thing or other, and trying to not spend money. And so basically they are talking about getting a nurse, and or making him to stay in a nursing home. So it's really difficult for the son. He's guilty and he's empathetic, but then it's too much for him to process. And you see, this is where he kind of feels, and still the interview is going on. There are some things which he has not heard towards the end of the war. So this is like the sketch blueprint of Auschwitz camp. So everything is from his recollection, the dad's recollection, and keeps on, like basically how he survived and what all he had to go through. He learned shoemaking just to survive. So you should have more than a skill to survive in the camp, so only then you'll not get executed. So if you have a cooking skill as well as shoemaking skills, then definitely you are more valuable to the guards and the camp more than the others. So you'll not get picked up for execution the next day. So it's a matter of survival of every day. Like every day you have to survive. So it's like day by day. And he says that how he learned shoemaking just to survive, and then try to gain the favor of so this is something like 1 day's bread is equal to 3 cigarettes, 200 cigarettes is equal to 1 bottle of vodka. This is the barter system there, how things were traded. Like if you give up your 1 day's bread, you're going to get 3 cigarettes, and when you save 200 cigarettes and you give it to the guards or some prisoner who has influence, then you're going to get 1 bottle of vodka, and that 1 bottle of vodka can make you go out of the camp for a while, or like check out the other camp nearby. So these kind of things are happening. Like you kind of see, so this is exactly the blueprint of how the gas chamber. So here is the oven, people will get cooked here. I mean, I'm saying it in the most niche way. Hi Sabarish, hi, I just saw your message. Let me put a hi for you. Yeah, so this is where Jews get cooked, and then like they are buried nearby. So here they have to undress, and everybody, like hundreds and hundreds of them, will be pushed into the oven and then gassed. It's pretty sickening. And like how close Vladek came to death, and what all suffering he had to go through. Yeah, all those things. So this is the second part. So this is the end of first part. So here you see, and here my troubles began, chapter 3, and it goes on. So we kind of see a lot of hardships, how basically the day by day survival goes, and then it's the end. Towards the end, it's like the war is over, and people came to know that Germany is losing, so they were set free. But immediately after a day or like few hours, they were captured again, and then they were tried to get killed. So how they escaped all those last minute maneuvers, and in the end, what happened? Like, so the father and mother, husband and wife, were separated in the camp. So the only hope the father had, that one day I'll reunite with my wife. She's there in the next camp. I have to make sure that she doesn't get executed, gets into the gas chamber. And I also have to save something like those 200 cigarettes, 1 bottle of vodka, 1 day bread. So he basically didn't have food. He saved his stock and then traded it for some other valuable item so that he can go meet his wife in the next camp, and then made sure that she's also safe. Traded some things with those guards, female guards. So there were female guards as well. Like lot of things. And then finally the story ends with this beautiful frame. I was like almost in tears when I was reading this page. So kind of still the interview is going on, and the father is describing the moment he got reunited with his wife. So Anja, my Anja, like more I don't need to tell you, we were both very happy and lived happy ever after. And this is the last ever frame. I'm tired from talking with you, and it's enough stories for now. So when did he die? 1968. Anja, the mother, and then 1982, the father. So it's a very heartbreaking, I'll say it again, very heartbreaking and distressing, disturbing, disorienting story. I would say don't read this if you're not into dark stuff, and also very dramatic stuff. And if you're like a happy-go reader, like if you've read only romance and then thrillers and then slow dramas, then this is definitely a hard pick. So if you're into this kind of exploration, exploring the history, what happened in the Holocaust or genocide, Hitler's regime, how World War II and World War One spanned, what all happened. If you're into this periodical war or drama genre, then you gotta pick up this book, man. So I'm warning you, don't read. You have to be really strong mentally to read this book. And basically, we kind of live in the 21st century, right? So 2024, right? And most of you would be living in the part where there is no war. So there is war going on in Ukraine and then Palestine, Iran. So this is basically will tell you how is it to live in those countries, or what kind of, basically give you an idea, like if your country is on war and if your enemy is invading your country, and especially they are having a propaganda to destroy the citizens, the native citizens, then how is your life going to be? So you have no idea how it's going to be, but this book gives you an idea how it could be. So that's the kind of what do you say, storyline that you're looking at. So if you're going to read it, take it slow. Good luck. And I wish you all the best in trying to read this story. And yeah, if you're a fan of graphic novels, then you want to explore graphic novels, then I'm telling you, this is the, what do you see, almost top notch. Number two, number one, debatable, but this is one of those all-time best graphic novels, especially in black and white. If you explore black and white graphic novel, this is going to be the number one. So the storytelling techniques and the narrative structure, like past and present, and then the symbolism. So symbolism is one of the critical techniques of storytelling, and if you use it wisely, especially in this story, yes, it demands symbolism, and he has used it very wisely and cleverly. The story itself critiques the story. I mean, the story critiques the story itself, and that's kind of amazing. And then reading a graphics comics inside a graphic novel, that was pretty amazing. So do check it out. It is worth reading. If you're into graphic novels, then definitely check it out, the complete MAUS, or you can just try reading the first part. So there is paperbacks where you get only the first part. My Father Bleeds History, it will be around 130, 140 pages. So that is also good. So try reading first part, and if you liked it, then explore the part two. And it's a very heavy read. So I hope you enjoyed. I mean, you would have not enjoyed because it's a very depressing story. But I hope you liked I recommending this book. And we have successfully completed 3 episodes of Golden Graphics. So definitely I will recommend more. I have read a lot of graphic novels and comics. So I have so much to talk about in these special series, like especially Manga Madness and Golden Graphics, along with our mainstream category, myViewOnBooks. So this year I have a lot of backlogs, so I'll come live almost once in 2 weeks. I can't promise to come every week, but a book recommendation once in 2 weeks, that I can promise you. So it'll be either manga, comics, or normal book. So yeah, do stay tuned, and I'll meet you in another live stream or video. Until then, you're watching Medley with Maddie. I'm Maddie Dawson. Do check out this book. Bye bye.